message that you have to look out for the family. That's what you'll know. Sometimes you got to look out for the family.
Back in the bunker here, Ferris Broxton Show. They're going to be talking about who's been murdering the witnesses. I'm back with Ferris Broxton, of course, your host, Ferris Broxton. What are we talking about today? What are we dissecting? What are we looking at? What kind of conspiracies are we jumping into?
Well, we're talking about the Grand Conspiracy, the nation's most important investigation into the Grand Conspiracy, top national news. I'm the eyewitness the FBI has not brought forward. They're ignoring me, so I've been producing a podcast with my testimony, but also lately, my last podcast was tying together the historical evidence to show that the nation's chief suspect, Sally Quillian Yates, and her family have been protecting hitmen. So how is it that we got to this point? Grand Conspiracy at the top of our nation's investigations, presidential elections, and what I find that I'm an eyewitness against her and I'm being silenced, but when I go back in historical and try to tie these people together, I find that the Dixie Mafia, that literally hitmen have been going around killing the witnesses and that they've covered up massive criminal organization. So that's what you saw in my last episode, in episode number 8. And I did put out a request in that episode that if anybody had been an eyewitness to one of the Dixie Mafia members' testimony, because this guy literally came to our church and got out of the Dixie Mafia, became an ordained minister. And so I put out a request. I said, if anybody knows this guy or remembers this, please speak up. Which
I just have one thing to say real quick. I keep looking at what is this?
Okay, so that is the...
I know we may have went out of order here.
The masonry. That's okay.
But I had to ask.
That's the secret. That's the secret
here.
society emblem. All right, that's what you see with the Freemasons. Okay, that's kind of their sign. They have a lot of different signs and ways of indicating who they are. But that's
compass, huh?
Compass and a square.
And a square,
right? It indicates the precise, choreographed, planned instruments that you would use to build a structure, or in any type of court, like a courtroom, a fake case, which we're covering today, somebody planning a hit, murdering the witnesses and having to cover it up with the news and the courtrooms and everything else. You got to have a real precise, choreographed drama in order to do that. And this is the people that have been doing it. I've caught them. I've exposed it.
Now, you say, just going off the topic of it today, murdering the witnesses. I want to ask you, who is murdering the witnesses?
Well, the guy that I covered in the last show was probably the guy that's murdered more than anybody. But there's been a number of them.
Sally Yates, right?
No, she's
not physically murdering anybody.
No, she threatened to kill me if I testified against. Oh yeah, the amount that she said she could kill me for, she said I can kill you for $10,000, is the same amount or less, but it's the same amount that Billy Sunday Burt said that they charged, that the Dixie Mafia charged. So you'll hear a lot of Billy Sunday Burt's the last living mobster, according to most people, reformed, and best friends, incidentally, with Sally Yates' cousin. So that's something that came out in my investigation, was this exposing Jimmy Terrell. So one of the big hits that I covered in episode 8 was a cover-up case where some doctors were murdered, and they had, apparently, because of what I've found with silenced witnesses, they had evidence. And the investigators that came forward and tried to say, hey, this isn't right, this is a cover-up job, were fired. And I go into detail in that in episode 8, the linchpin. But these guys literally, 2 hitmen went to a house and murdered 2 doctors. And it was known as the Marietta 7 case because they framed 7 guys. And the way they did it was so obvious and so flagrant, but I pick apart that case and show that the chief suspects are Jimmy Terrell, who, if you remember from the past episodes, the Terrells established Jackson County, Georgia. Originally, it was Franklin County. It was broken up into a number of different counties, and this was run by the Quillians, the Terrells, the Russells.
I had a question about back in Georgia. That's where you're from.
Right.
And that's where all of this started. Is that correct?
Yeah, this has been going on longer than I've been alive.
All the evidence you've been going over the last few months, that all leads back to Georgia.
Right. So I'm the eyewitness against Sally Yates. That has nothing to do with these historical conspiracy cases.
Now, as we talk about the 56, the hitman,
Right.
What's his name?
Billy Sunday Burt.
Billy Sunday Burt.
Right.
That leads back to Sally Yates threatening to kill you.
Yes.
And how does that happen? Because they're different timelines. But
Right.
are you just
Right.
kind of using it as an analogy, saying that she would have somebody kill you, and
Okay.
the family is known to do this?
Perfect. This is let's play a video. Let's play clip number 1, please.
Davis is always the one to set it up from information that people like my dad could not get. When I say that, from professionals like lawyers and politicians, are high up the ladder information from other criminals.
So, who hired the alleged hit on the Durham family? The case was closed without that question being answered by law enforcement, and Davis did not provide that answer in his confession. We don't know if it was orchestrated by information coming from someone of higher social standing.
So you see the hitman's son is the guy you hear at first, and then you hear the narrator. That's chapter 2, season 2 with In the Red Clay, and they've got Billy Stonewall Burt, the hitman's son, testifying. And what he's saying is, my dad was the hitman, but
So
there was
that is the hitman's son,
Right.
that we just heard right there.
that's right.
Okay.
And he's written books, and he's best friends with Jimmy Terrell. He's best friends with the investigator for the crime scene. Now, let's put up, it's the picture number 5, please. Okay, so what you have here is, this is an investigator for the crime scene, a different one. And this is his daughter on Facebook saying, I was young when this happened, but it seems like I remember him telling me this husband and wife had info and somebody wanted to keep them quiet. Okay, so this is somebody whose father was an investigator, forced to resign because he said, this isn't right, something's not right here in this case. Jimmy Terrell was the crime scene investigator for this double homicide, but this investigator that had to resign, his daughter's saying the doctors were murdered because they had information and somebody wanted to keep them quiet. And what you heard in the video that I just played was Billy Stonewall Burt saying somebody was ordering the hits, but that wasn't coming to my dad. That was coming to his partner, the other hitman, which was, I forget, his name was also Billy, but Billy Wayne Davis. And then in the video you heard the last living mobster saying that Billy Wayne Davis was getting his information from higher ups, from attorneys, that the jobs these hitmen were being called to do were being called in by attorneys. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Jimmy Terrell, because the top attorneys in that area were the Terrells, okay, just like the Russells and the Quillians were the top attorneys, the Terrells. So you have both sides of Sally Yates' family.
Was this like a grand conspiracy to control these situations, like from thousands of years ago? How long does this truly go back? I mean, it's just a question that comes up as you're going
it's
backwards.
Obvious. Yeah, it's obvious. So Jimmy Terrell, obviously, the name James Terrell, right?
Yeah.
That's his name. When you look back at the establishment of the state of Georgia, what you see is after the War of Independence, the first county established in Georgia was Franklin County. Now, later that was cut up to be all these other counties, Barrow, Jackson, Banks, Athens, the University of Georgia. And I don't think I have it as a display today. I'm looking for it. But there's a memorial in Franklin County to James Terrell.
I think I need to rephrase that question. So, in the beginning, was there a group of people? We'll just call them dudes.
Yeah.
Did they say, hey, we're going to create this so that our future family are protected
Yes.
and elite?
Yes. And it was done by a man with the same name, James Terrell. And his name was James Nimrod Terrell. So Nimrod, when you look at the secret society, he was a Mason, okay? But when you look at the secret society, the name Nimrod, all you have to do is search it, just type
It's
it
in
into
the
your,
Bible. I've heard it.
Okay.
I've heard Nimrod.
But Nimrod to the Masons in the Masonic history,
It's different.
yes, is a man who established a. Oh, I have it somewhere, but it's not. I don't think I've got it right here in front of me. He basically was the undisputed ruler that made the laws. Okay. And James Nimrod, who established the first county in Georgia where this took place after the War of Independence, did the same thing.
So they got
He was a
together.
lawmaker for Georgia.
Yeah, they got together and said, we're going to create this plan
Secret society. Yes.
so that everyone we choose in the future
Yes.
succeeds, and the ones against us are going to be Ferris Broxton.
The enslavers, okay, the planters, the people that owned that had hundreds of slaves, okay, that owned the government. We had colonies before the War of Independence, and these were the people, the secret society that had an alliance to each other. And you can find that in their family histories, but that's exactly what that wasn't his given name, that was his alias, James Nimrod Terrell. That's exactly how he identified himself through the Masonic history, and that's exactly who he was when you get the secret society showing who James Nimrod Terrell was in the Virginia establishments. So yes, this was a group between the same people at the top of the secret society today, the Russells, the Terrells, the Quillians. In fact, let's look, because this all takes place in Winder. Let's look at picture number 11, please. So what you're looking at there is you're looking at Winder. Okay, this is where the hitman lived. This is where Sally Quillian Yates' parents lived. This is where her grandparents lived. This is where the Richard Brevard Russell family, okay, which the Senate building in Washington, D.C. was named after. Biggest, most powerful senator of all time over the spy agencies, over the CIA since its inception. They're all from this tiny little town here that's called Russell, which is Winder. And what you see next to it is Fort Yargo State Park. So Fort Yargo was where the original settlers came into Franklin County, which is Jackson and Barrow County, and fought with the natives. Fort Yargo was built in order to run out the natives and establish this area. So from the very beginning, the establishment of Winder was Winder and Russell.
So I ask those questions because I'm wondering if you go back there, is there going to be a hitman waiting for you and it's going to murder Ferris Broxton? That's why I asked all those questions.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
I'm just wondering, like, what happens if you go back?
Well, I wouldn't doubt it, because in my case, okay, now aside from the national case, because the person that's the criminal in my case that I can very much prove is Sally Yates, and she's also the chief national suspect, and she told me she would attack Trump. So that's part of the reason, and how the way they did it's the same. But yes, if I go back, because the same people that are involved in my case are at the top of government. Jimmy Terrell is the mayor of Winder, Georgia today. The sheriff that arrested me and set all this up in Barrow County is still the sheriff today, Smith. And his family's tied back. You can go back and read the original establishments of Fort Yargo. And in fact, I've got the history right here, the early history of Jackson County, Georgia. So if you go back and look in this name, you will have Sheriff Smith's ancestors in here, along with the Sally Quillian Yates ancestors and the Terrells that established this. This was written by somebody in the secret society. Okay, so even the book itself, Barrow was named after somebody in the secret society. Winder, Georgia was named, the county and the city, both named after members at the top of the secret society. That's the problem.
I'm guessing, like, is that really nefarious? Is that like a horrible thing? Like, you think a bunch of immigrants come to America and they go and settle in an area,
right?
And they end up settling in their Terrells and Smiths and all this stuff, sure, like the lineage. But is it so weird that a father would want to be a sheriff like his father? Or is he being forced into it?
No.
Like, does this evidence really matter? Is it relevant?
Oh, it's completely relevant.
How?
Well, if you go to try somebody, so for instance, if Sally Yates were to be indicted, right? So the first step is to indict somebody. So what should be happening, what should have already happened, is the Attorney General of the United States should have come to me and said, we want you to testify before a grand jury. And so I can testify to what Sally Yates told me. right? This is what she said to me. She said that it would happen like this. And then I can present the case where she tried to force me using the same techniques as they used to attack Trump using FISA. And I can show the documentation, which is on my website, of like spies trying to threaten me and manipulate me in the same way, and use that. But not only if you were say you were to catch a murderer, right? Say you were to try to indict a murderer, not only would you want to present the evidence that somebody is an eyewitness to what they said and did, but if they've murdered before, you would want to present the evidence that they'd murdered before. And if they were in a family of murderers, you would want to present the evidence proving that they had been in a family of murderers. But the problem here is the family of murderers that Sally Yates is in is the secret society. The bigger problem is that it's not just Sally Yates that's conspired to overthrow our government. It's a grand conspiracy with a number of actors, many of them I know nothing about. Okay, like I know very little about Jim Comey. I think he appointed an FBI agent over this area that's from this same little town, Atlanta, to ignore me.
What is that timeline that the overthrow of the government has been going on? You've been researching so much.
Right.
So you are literally an encyclopedia on this stuff now.
Right. Well, from James Nimrod Terrell establishing Franklin County, one of the early settlers, and being that Nimrod identity, that he was basically sending a message to the secret society saying, I am the law. And he was. He was both early senator for Georgia and early House
So are you
rep.
talking like 200 years
We're talking about
to overthrow the government, or 50 years? Like, is this recent?
They planned to control our government from the beginning.
Okay.
From the top, think about this. The United States was first a bunch of colonies where there were very, very wealthy people who lived in the colonies and had tons of slaves, and they made money. Like Virginia and South Carolina, they made tons and tons of money through farming, and because they owned slaves. So they had these huge plantations, and they were selling, say, cotton back to England, right? They had very, very lucrative trades in tobacco and different, cash crops, if you will. So when the War of Independence was fought, these people, these ruling families were already very well established, and they already had this aristocrat class where they were basically multimillionaires that owned people, that exploited people, and that's how they got rich. So yes, they conspired in secret societies to make sure that they could control, because now slavery wasn't popular in England. The English were against slavery. When you got to sit there and watch, and there's different types of slavery, but when you got to sit there and watch chattel slavery and the horrible abuses that went with it, you wouldn't think of somebody like George Washington as being, somebody worthy of being the leader of a country.
When you go, right now, you're being watched.
Sure.
Like, you're pretty sure of that.
Oh, I get harassed all the time, yeah.
Like, that the FBI, somebody in some government entity is keeping tabs on Ferris Broxton.
Somebody is able to keep
me. Is it a serious one? Like, are they like all over you, surveillance?
They know that I'm good at catching.
I mean, I see a few weird things when we go out recording things. When we go out to see the billboards, when we go out to try to contact a senator.
What?
But I don't see like it doesn't seem to me, I'm just being honest with you, as the guy who is a reporter,
right,
just kind of documenting and being around you and trying to see what's going on. I haven't seen like mass surveillance to where
you're not getting the CB. You're not hearing the CB threats.
Yeah, I haven't seen all that, but I've heard you pull them up.
Right,
and I'm just thinking like at this point, the information that you have and that you're giving out to everybody right now. That's why they're covering. That's why they're following you. That's why they're surveilling you, or is it what you know? Or
let me.
Yeah.
I don't mean to answer a question with a question.
That's
but let me ask you this: do you think, with the evidence that I've put forward and with you've been with me to visit our representative's office, do you think they should have just responded in some form or another?
I do think that they should have made sure that you are clear on the right ways to have a conversation, meaning to to, they're our government. They are supposed to listen to us. That is their job.
You watched me call the FBI.
And I did have seen that it's difficult to be done, but not specifically difficult just for you.
Okay, but you watched me call the FBI and say, I'm an eyewitness in the nation's publicly announced investigation.
I thought that was weird. Like when you called the FBI and they decided just to hang up on you, and you weren't being irate, weird, or crazy, or yelling or screaming.
Okay.
They just decided they didn't like something they heard and said, we're cutting this off, when I thought that was weird. I'll be honest, because you weren't aggressive, you weren't yelling or anything. That was weird, but I also am not sure if they singled you out to do that too. If that's just their process of weeding out what they want to talk about or what they want to pursue or in what they don't. I'm saying, like, anybody who calls in, I'm wondering if that is their protocol or if it was just you. I don't know. I don't have facts to that. I don't have facts to say that was just you.
Okay, so there's a announcement on your local news. There's a murder, and the investigation is ongoing. If you saw or you know anything about this murder, please call. Now, we're not talking about a local murder, and we're not talking about one person's life. We're talking about the security of our nation, the largest, most important investigation in the United States. Now, back down to just a local murder. If you call and you get the sheriff's department and you say, hey, yes, I'm an eyewitness against the murderer. I know them. They told me they were going to do this. And they hang up the phone. Is that just some little... maybe that's just not their protocol. Or is that this is a flagrant crime? There's a criminal in the FBI or in the local investigator's office.
Well, I have been hung up on before. So if I call the police, right, and maybe I have a little aggression in my voice because I just went through a traumatic experience. I have actually literally had operators tell me I'm too aggressive. If you do it again, I'm going to hang up on you. And I'm just trying to report a current crime.
Right.
I've literally had it happen. And I was a little hysterical because of what was going on. But that person's mind told them that I was being aggressive towards them for some reason. Maybe I was just hysterical at the time. And they hung up on me, literally. And I'm like, wait, I'm reporting something going on right now. And you just hung up on me Right. So,
but you say I didn't do that. You watched.
No, that time you were actually very mellow, and you were just trying to get help. It almost sounded like a customer service call, where you were trying to just get help.
Right, because
to go to.
Because I have so many times been insistent that I'm an eyewitness and been hung up that I've gotten to the point where I've presented it in a fashion that they can't deny. Now, this happened. I've written letters. I've sent certified mail. But if this was a local investigation and they were saying, we're investigating this publicly, if you're an eyewitness, and I had written letters to the sheriff's department and I had called repeatedly and I had made public broadcast stating that I was an eyewitness to this murder and that I was being ignored, would the average citizen in that county say, you know what, I'm terrified to stand up because somebody's able to silence him? And this person has a family history of hitmen murdering the witnesses of the crimes that were right under their nose. Right? I mean, this is huge. This is not a like, well, maybe you're just like falling through the cracks of the FBI. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars to be heard. I put up billboards. I've called all my representatives, and if they want to come forward and say, hey, yeah, we don't believe you, we heard you. But when they say it's under investigation, they've been telling me that for 15 years, and they won't even tell me that because my immediate response is, who's investigating? If you're going to if you want to say maybe it's under investigation or it's probably under investigation, then they should be talking to me because I'm the eyewitness with the evidence.
So the reason why I've asked all those questions
Right.
About what you're talking about today is, like, if I go to Winder, then I go to your hometown. That's your hometown, right?
Well, I lived there.
Close.
I lived there for a few years.
Okay, so you lived there,
Right.
You went to school there, right?
No, I went to school in Dunwoody,
Dunwoody. I'm sorry, I'm just saying Georgia.
Right.
We go to Georgia. We'll just say general.
North Georgia. Yeah.
Because I know you now. I'm talking to you.
Right.
Am I going to be? Am I being watched right now? Like just being the reporter that is covering Ferris Broxton, am I being tailed?
So-
am I?
In my case, this is my experience. Okay. So in my case, Sally Yates tried to make sure that she could control me by controlling everybody around me. She asked me, in fact, I've got a clip that I found that I should put up, but she asked me things. They drugged me with Rufinol without me knowing. Okay. They drugged me with Rufinol, which is a memory drug. It causes you to forget. And then they told me, ask me about my friends. Tell me something about your friend that nobody else knows. Well, in some case, I would be able to say that. But again, normally I wouldn't answer that question. I'd realize it was a problem. But if somebody drugs you all of a sudden with, like truth serum or Rufinol, the things that we haven't even gotten into yet, but what they want to know is what do you know that nobody else knows about this person? You hang out with them, you've done things with them, like say you and I've been fishing, right? And so if I don't
know if I okayed that to go out in public.
Oh, sorry.
I do not hang out with this guy.
Yeah. But so yeah.
I barely know him.
Tommy fell off the boat one day. Tommy fell off the boat one day. And so like if I wanted to basically, if she asked me, tell me something about Tommy that that nobody else knows, I could be like, you remember when you fell in the river? Yeah. So if somebody wanted to convince Tommy that I was sending a message to him, they could come to him and say, hey, I need you to help me. And Tommy would be like, I don't know you. And be like, I know you really do. I can't talk to you in person.
So
and they could say, I'm the guy that was there when you fell off the boat. Yeah. And then Tommy would be able to say, oh, wow, this has to be coming from Ferris.
Now, if they see, that it would benefit them to start talking to me,
oh, they would try.
would they start messing with me?
They would try.
Just because I'm a reporter who's trying to figure out
you got to understand right
if
now,
you're full of it or not.
Right now, Sally Yates is under investigation. It's a whole lot harder for her to plan something to pass a message to me. I've been coming forward publicly and more effectively trying to be heard. So
Are you saying yes?
They would, yeah.
Oh, I'm gone.
I've got no, yeah.
Just messing.
I've got no, because they did it. They did it with my friends.
Really?
I literally had friends begin to say things to me that it was quite obvious that somebody had gotten to them and tried to get them to help me with the racket, to try to help me to carry this out. So they try to make me look like the mastermind. And that's how the spy agencies would justify saying no to the representatives, right? To say Julie Fedorchak, say no, he's under investigation, and then you don't need to talk to him. Well, here's the problem. It's obvious at this point. I've made enough noise that it's obvious that the FBI is doing everything in their power to obstruct the nation's most important investigation. So if our representatives look at that, they should be able to say, call foul on the FBI. Say, no, you're using an FBI investigation to obstruct an FBI investigation. This man's child was kidnapped 15 years ago. He's presented evidence of that, and it's time for me to say, you're not doing your job.
Something I do notice, every time a conversation stops since we've been out there, since I've followed you around,
Right.
No matter who it's been, even the FBI that you talked to on the phone in Minneapolis.
Right.
Also over at the federal building,
Right.
when you're talking to people, and also at the Capitol,
Right.
when we were trying to get a hold of the governor. So every time you say the word racket, that's when things start to change. That's when you were hung up on by the FBI agent.
Yep.
That is when the conversation stopped at the governor's office,
Yep.
the representative's office. That is the word that triggered every time.
Okay.
Why? Why is racket?
They don't want.
Why every time you say that,
that's
they're like, conversation over,
Right.
and we never hear from them again.
Okay, because a grand conspiracy is a racket. Now, racketeering is synonymous now with our legal term RICO. Okay, so the RICO statute is an anti-racketeering statute. Now, if you go back again to the murders in the 1970s, there was Sally Yates' family, her grandfather and family. There was these hits that were called in. And like I said, we don't know who a lot of them came from, but one of the biggest, according to the hitman's son, the person that called in the most hits to Billy Burt was a woman named Ruth Chancey. So she grew up, she went to Winder High School. She was the same place that Sally Yates' grandparents and parents, her father went to Winder High. So the same family is there, and Ruth Chancey was charged with racketeering, RICO. Okay, this is a family history of racketeering. The national investigation is an investigation into a grand conspiracy. That's a racket. That's federal racketeering. So for them to say, we're investigating racketeering that's affected the election of our president, and me to say I'm a witness against a racket involving Sally Yates is me responding to exactly what they say they're investigating. So in other words, they are immediately hanging up the phone whenever I say exactly what I should say.
That doesn't make sense, though, because they are in a current investigation. There's current court trials going on right now. Yet they're asking people for witnesses. They want tips. But every time you say a word that is seemingly a normal word, racket, but that's kind of what this is all about.
Right, exactly.
It's all about a racket.
So
why are they being triggered to hang up on you when you say that or stop the conversation?
It would be the exact same thing if there was a local murder and the local investigators said, if you have information on this murder, and you call up and say, I have information on this murder, boom, and they hang up the phone.
No, because if I did that right now and said, there's a murder out here and there's a man dead in the street, the cops are coming.
Okay, that's not the scenario that we put forward.
No, it's not, because this is something that's an ongoing thing for many years, and that it is a little different. But if I have information, generally, I believe I could call and someone would listen for a second.
But you said yourself that you watched me call the FBI repeatedly, and they just hung up.
That did happen a couple times. Well, after you said the word, you talked to him for a minute. I know the last FBI agent said, if you just interrupt me again, which you didn't do, I'm a witness to that. You did not interrupt him at all.
Sure.
But for some reason, when you said the word racket, he decided to say that you interrupted him. It's like, and I know that that's the point he did it at. It's not just he chose that,
right.
That's why he did it, because you said that word.
So what I'm saying is I'm a witness to exactly what y'all are investigating, and you're saying that doesn't make sense. But I think it's crystal clear.
If you are a witness, wouldn't we want you down here?
No, it doesn't make. Okay, so what I said makes sense.
Yeah.
But what they did does not make sense.
So why are you not in their building?
All right, let's go to picture number 4, please.
But that's what we're learning about. So
picture number 4. This is one of our nation's most aggressive, conservative civil rights law firms. This is the ACLJ. Incidentally, I used to support these guys in a big way. I still do support them, but I've stopped because they can't hear me. Because they've come forward many times and said, we want witnesses for this, we want witnesses for that. We'll represent you. An attorney will talk to you. If you were spied on in church, you will have an attorney talk to you. These are the mail pieces that they've sent me. Shocking attacks on your free speech rights. Literally. This is 2 different mail pieces. In one of them, they reference Charlie Kirk, murdered because he's speaking up. That's what I'm saying. These people they will ignore you and give the hit team time to kill you. That's the whole point. It is a shocking attack on my freedom of speech. If I can't come forward as a witness, they should have somebody come forward and say, I am the psychologist. I've talked to Ferris Broxton, and Ferris Broxton is crazy. So we're not going to use him as a witness. But they will not sit down with me. They will not talk to me. They will not acknowledge me.
Well, that is what I'm trying to get to, is you have a group of people that are looking for evidence on a current crime. You go in.
Current. It's been going on for years.
Yeah, but you go in and say, I am the best witness for this crime. I am the guy.
I'm the best witness, and I have evidence that the same thing happened to me during the time period that you're investigating.
So there's one side that doesn't want you to be heard, and there's obviously a side that wants the evidence because they're prosecuting.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think that this goes to.
So you're telling me they don't even know you exist because of what they're doing?
I don't
because
think
what the other side's doing?
I don't think that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi have heard me. I can pretty much guarantee you that the Fox 5 News team, like Sean Hannity and the people that have covered this, that have been against FISA and exposing the attacks against Trump from the beginning, I can pretty much guarantee you that those guys don't know I exist. And that's why I've had rewards up for people that can help me get heard. But the problem here is I have a representative, a lawmaker that appears to be either intentionally ignoring me or going to she's having teletown halls, which allow you to control this. That's what this has all been. It's been cyber. If you have a town hall and you say, has everybody been heard? Has everybody in the room that has something critically important to be heard? Okay, no, we got a hand up over here. What is it that you haven't been heard on? Okay, but she's having these teletown halls where she can censor literally an attack on my freedom of speech. She can control who gets heard, and she doesn't even have to do it. It can just be the person that's answering the phones, because we've done that. I've done that with you, gone to her teletown halls repeatedly and had somebody say, you will get an answer. She said herself, Julia Fedorchak had said, you will be responded to, but they never respond to me. They send a generic response, an electronic response that says, we think that your subject is important and thank you for calling in.
That's kind of a tactic too.
Yeah.
Ignore him and he'll go away.
It's high-tech censorship.
He'll get tired of talking.
It's high-tech censorship. So let's go back to, because we're seeing that that's the problem is high-tech censorship that's what's controlling our country. And if you get past it, then historically you can just get murdered. So let's go back to 5, please. Picture number 5. Okay, so once again, this was an her father was an investigator, and I tried to respond because when you have witnesses, in order to be heard, the witnesses should be able to contact each other and talk. Okay, so she's saying, I wish I knew more about this. My father was young, and she's indicating that she believes it's a cover-up and that her father, one of the investigators in this case, was fired. So I tried to respond, but when I try to respond, I get on and I start typing, but the screen for the keyboard comes up over the screen of what I'm typing. So I can't see to respond. And I shared that with you. You said you've had that before.
What?
Where you go to type and the screen comes up and you can't see what you're typing.
I mean, I've had that, but I think it was a user error for me. Okay. I mean, what you see, I'll be honest with you. I've seen some strange things following you around, but what I see with my mind is 80% coincidence. I really do.
Okay.
But there are some things that are like,
okay, Tommy, I'll challenge you right now.
That
$5,000, $5,000 cash to you. If you can get Julia Fedorchak, our representative that represents me and that represents you, if you can get her to say, I realize Ferris Broxton claims to be an eyewitness against Sally Yates, the chief suspect in the grand conspiracy against Trump. Okay, the U.S. attorney that got the FISA warrant to spy on Trump. But for you to sit here and tell me that it looks like this is mostly coincidence.
No, because why I say that, let me explain, is they do that with everybody. They don't want to talk to anybody, is what I notice.
There's a very subtle means. That's how. Think about it. That's
how hard it is to get a hold of these people and to sit down and talk to them before they have their watchdogs. That's what I call them. That's right. The person you meet here.
That's what I mean.
The next level. That is the next level.
Okay, that is a grand conspiracy. If our lawmakers are being protected from hearing what's really going on, from hearing people like me, by someone who can look through every single contact and weed out those contacts and prevent them from being heard, then we have a massive problem. Here's the issue with Julia Fedorchak. The way that she has structured her town halls has enabled the grand conspiracy to continue. She has structured her town halls so that there is no possibility of you showing up and saying, hey, my complaints are being intercepted. I have come forward multiple times and my attempts to be heard are not responded to properly. If I can stand up in a town hall and say that with all the media around, I have a much better chance of being heard. If I'm able to stand up in a town hall and say, I'm an eyewitness in the nation's most important investigation into the grand conspiracy. I'm an eyewitness against Sally Yates. I have a case right here in my hand to prove that she's been using FISA to run organized crime, and she told me she would attack Trump. It's really hard to keep people from hearing that. But this massive grand censorship seems to be something that she is just following along with as if she doesn't know that that's the problem. You see what I mean?
Yep. So
That's the problem.
You and I decide we're going to take this car and go take off and go travel over to Georgia. You and I tomorrow.
Okay.
From the time that we leave this place, let's say we go in one of your vehicles. See, I'm not going to give away who you are like you just did me saying I like to fish. Thanks. We'll just say vehicle.
We've seen your
But-
news channel, Tommy. We know
Trying
you,
to hide
we know
from
you
me,
like
man.
we know you like to fish.
I don't hide from anything. I'm an open book, so I'm just joking.
Right.
But seriously, we head out, right? We head out. We're cruising over to Georgia, you and I just because I want to see some of this and let the public know he is being watched. So the moment we leave this street, I won't tell them which one, but this street, they know where we're going. At all times, all the way through the travel. When we stop at a gas station to get some food, maybe we throw the pole out in the middle because hey, we like to fish.
Stop and do a little fishing.
Right? But we're being watched that whole time. So when I walk in there to buy bait for that little fishing stop we take because we're traveling, might as well. Inside of that little bait shop, we're being watched. We're being watched
okay.
at every moment until we arrive in Georgia.
Let me explain how this works. FISA was a secret, okay? Nobody knew what FISA was until it became apparent that FISA
Occupy
was
Wall
used
Street.
until
Before that time.
FISA was used to try to control the presidential election.
Yes.
Okay, so people didn't understand what FISA was. FISA is a tool, a computer tool that the spy agencies can use to hack into any and every security system that's online. In other words, if we were to stop in a bait shop, somebody that was watching, if they're using the FISA tools, somebody that was watching us via satellite would be able to say, hey, they've been 2 hours without using the bathroom. Here's a place up here. We know they're going fishing. Here's a place that sells bait. They'll likely stop there. And they can hack into that video system at that bait shop and have somebody in a car behind us walk into the bait shop and say something that rattles our nerves. They can have somebody walk in and know exactly what we bought because they got an earpiece telling them, yeah, they picked up some Rapala lures. That's his favorite. We know Ferris, and we know he loves the Rapala lures. So we can sit in there and we can get dinner, we can go shopping, we can go up to the register, and somebody can just pull up and walk in the front door and say, hey, do you guys have any Rapala lures? I'm starving. Do y'all have any spaghetti? Because that's what we just ate.
And you're saying
And they could say, and that person
that's
could
to mess with you.
They can do that to mess with you. And I've had the spy agencies do that to mess with you. Once it happens and you realize it's happened, it's really hard to prove. The best I can do is just pull out a camera and say, this is what just happened, right?
Which you've done millions
I
of
have
times.
I have lived through that type of harassment of somebody letting you know we're following you. We know everything about you. We know every embarrassing situation, and they can create an embarrassing situation. They can have that guy go into that rest area before you get there and sit in the bathroom knowing that you can't make it anywhere, that you got to go to the bathroom, and they can have somebody, they know how many bathrooms are at that facility. They can literally, they waste taxpayer money to literally have a team of people spying on you full time. FISA surveillance is 24-hour surveillance. You have to be able to keep your cool, because when you're in that situation and they're treating you like a spy, it's really tempting to go off on somebody when they do that.
Do you ever mock them?
I have.
You sit there and go,
I have.
I know you're watching me.
No, I know you can't do that, because then they go. Then they'll say he's crazy. There's a man in here that's crazy.
Sometimes I've thought you were crazy.
All of a sudden,
I won't lie.
thanks, Tommy.
Well, it doesbut you probably thought I was crazy. It's a blanket statement. It's not you're really a crazy guy.
Right.
You need to be locked up.
But
Don't be so
Okay,
sensitive.
so here the level of ability is limited by the level of money that they can spend. They have the ability. It's paying people to cooperate. But the best thing you can do to that guy right there, okay, so if he's a spy and he's on payroll, before anybody knew what FISA was, putting a camera in his face is something he's not going to like. But what I would frequently do was try to get them on camera, because if this guy is a criminal actor and you get a picture of his face, which I have caught tons of spies, many, many different spies sabotaging me in all different ways, from trying to cause accidents to trying to harass me at work, trying to run me out of my job. But if you have a picture of that person's face and they do a legitimate investigation, they should be able to prove that this is a FISA spy attack, a criminal attack that was done by spies on government payroll. And those people should be brought to account. So far, we have very little. We have like this Judge Boasberg and Kevin Kleinsmith, where Kevin Kleinsmith altered one piece of evidence to get a FISA warrant against Trump. And then Judge Boasberg basically gave him a slap on the wrist instead of putting him in prison for 20 years and charging him with treason. So you've got this little cover up. But my case literally played out for many, many years, and I collected the evidence against these spies and all the different things they've done. Literally having a beautiful woman follow me, convince me that she's not a spy. I mean, come up with kids and, repeatedly come around me, and to the point where I think I'm convinced she's not a spy.
Could you be wrong?
And then she's a spy. Oh, no, it's really
what
well
I'm saying
documented.
by could you be wrong is that guy on the CB, could he not have been talking to you?
No, of course. He was obviously talking to
Did
me.
he say your name?
No, he didn't say my
That's
name.
the problem that I had
Okay.
hearing that.
Okay.
I heard him coming in on your CB.
Right.
That is weird
Okay.
that would come in on your CB radio.
All right.
But I'd never heard, I don't know. That's the problem with that piece of evidence for me that day.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's not evidence. It just means I don't know how to tell that he's talking to you. Because what you've gone through and what you've done.
He says on there very clearly, you and every single person that conspired or that orchestrated this for their own personal means and satisfaction. He says none of them are going to lie. We can bring them all into court, and none of them are going to lie. And at the end of the day, every one of them is going to be going to prison.
So
Okay.
there's a reason for this. So that person that comes out and yells Rapala lures, right? While you're in there, and that's your favorite
No,
lure.
he comes
but
in the store.
he goes in to do it just to mess with you
No,
and throw you off.
Rapala Lures is weak. He comes in and he tells you in front of your face. He comes in and asks the guy that you're buying the Rapala Lures from before he just walks in the door and says, "Hey, do you guys have any Rapala Lures?" And I'm starving. What about you got spaghetti? Because he knows we just ate spaghetti. He knows everything that we did. And then he says, I need some Rapala Lures because I'm going to Georgia. I'm going to do some fishing in Georgia.
Could you be wrong? Could that just be a coincidence?
The odds of that happening one time, when you multiply the odds of somebody coming in and asking for Rapala Lure times
We're in the
odds,
new age now.
Okay, listen.
We got people chanting
Statistics
to get synchronicities to happen.
Statistics is calculated by multiplying the odds of somebody coming in and asking for Rapala Lure times the odds of somebody saying that they're going to Georgia, where we're going, all the way up here in North Dakota, times the odds of somebody telling what they want for lunch being the same thing as what you had for lunch. All of a sudden, you have a statistical probability that's in the millions or trillions. And for that to happen one time, yeah, people say, this is crazy, this happened. It happened one time. But for this to continue to happen and compound that with I have a case proving that it's a racket, that they are hiding it. Okay.
I have a question. So what if, is there a chance that 50% is a coincidence? Are you telling me none of it is?
No. Okay. Now, coincidences do happen.
Okay.
And that part of my challenge is I have collected, in fact, okay, so this is a good example. I have collected a mountain of evidence because every time I've been sabotaged at work. So every time somebody starts to do something that looks suspicious to me, I start documenting it. So if you were to go through my evidence, you would find 9 out of 10 pieces or 19 out of 20 pieces of evidence don't have any tie to this. It's that 1 out of 10 pieces or 1 out of 100 pieces. When you look at it, you go, wow. Okay, now, are the other 19 out of 20 pieces irrelevant? Maybe. Maybe it was they realized this isn't going to work, this isn't going anywhere. But what you find is just like a thief that realizes they're caught on camera. If you can go in a store and you can walk up to the register and take money out of the register, you'd be surprised how many people would do that. But if there's a camera on the register, they realize they can't do that. Well, they may go steal an item of clothing. When then there's a magnetic device on the item of clothing. When they realize they can't get away with it, they stop trying. And it's the same way with the spy agencies. Once they realize that you're able to prevent them from manipulating you, from eliciting a response, that's the big thing, that they don't even have to frame you. They can make you mess up. Because like in that situation there, if somebody elicits an improper response from you,
Can they make you murder?
that's the problem.
Like
That's the problem.
these
people
murdering the witnesses?
Okay, so
Do you think
well,
that hitman was
okay.
controlled, or was he doing
of
it because he
course.
liked it?
of course, here's the problem with. Okay, so I've documented many times. Sally Yates would take somebody and say, "Do it again." Okay, so what they would do is just like Billy Sunday Burt. We have the evidence against you. They can either have somebody show them or have somebody convince them, or they can have them charged. Now, they got a guy that's a hitman. He killed somebody. In Billy Sunday Burt's case, they knew exactly what he had done, and they've got the evidence against him. But instead of prosecuting him, they say, do it again, only here's who you do it to. And you're realizing, and if you listen to that podcast, you will hear Billy Stonewall Burt very plainly say his father, the hitman, became resentful because he kept having to kill all of these people. He didn't want to do that. But basically, his own son says he had to keep killing people because there was somebody investigating the case. And what was happening was a federal agent was offering rewards, saying, if you tell me where a moonshine still is, or you testify to some, I'll give you $1,000 cash. So people will come forward and give the investigator $1,000 cash. And then somebody in the investigation would tip off, like Ruth Chancey, and say, this person is going to testify. And then the hitman had to go kill another person. He was bound to continue to commit the crimes, just like a liar, like a little kid that's lying. Okay? I'll take my own story. Snuck out of the house, right? Get home. My dad's like, we've been up all night. Where you been? Well, I lie. And then I have to lie more to cover it up, right? Because I don't want my friends to get in trouble. And before you know it, I've spun this big, huge, lie. And my dad's trying to look into it and figure out all these things that aren't true. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. That's what they do. That's the natural course of events. That's how this got to be so big. But when you look at Billy Sunday Burt's case and his best friend Jimmy Terrell, you see that that's the problem. The problem is that the people that have conspired to overthrow our government have been doing this for so long that they're caught in it. There's no way out. In other words, if the people that are in this, that are caught up in this grand conspiracy against, to control our government, were to, if we were immediately to be able to eradicate all of the people with deep state ties in the spy agencies, everybody that's conspired would be prosecuted to the full penalty of law. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at massive criminal organization in the spy agencies, and these people all of a sudden, well, what are they going to do? They're going to be caught. And so what you have is people saying, I'll do whatever is necessary to help you cover this up, including murder. Let's go to picture 9, please. I'll do everything that's possible to cover this up, including murder, so that I don't have to pay the consequences for what I've done. Now, this is Jimmy Terrell right here. If you look at this highlighted part, this is this is about Jimmy Terrell. This is the last living mobster. This is on his Facebook page. Billy Stonewall Burt, the son of the hitman. And this is about when the hitman died, okay? He died in prison. He says, at my dad's funeral in April of 2017, I was sitting on the front row with my wife on one side and Jimmy Terrell on the other. He says he doesn't remember a lot, that it was pretty tough on him and his son. He says, I do remember Jimmy coming from out of town to be by my side. He has always been a best friend to me. In other words, Jimmy Terrell was the investigator for the crime scene where the two doctors were murdered, and where the witness that we presented earlier is saying, hey, my dad was fired. He said there was more of these doctors were killed because they knew something, and I can't reach them. There's some cyber problem that prevents me from being able to reach them. And that's how my life is. There's a whole lot of people I can't reach, and I've challenged you to try to reach them. I realize you have a full-time job. You work for a living. You don't have time to do this whole investigation. But the problem is the FBI is not doing that. They are the problem. So Jimmy Terrell was the crime scene investigator on the west side of Atlanta. And then he moved where Billy Stonewall Burt, or Billy Sunday Burt, his father, murdered these two doctors who apparently had some information or evidence. And then he moved to Winder, Georgia, Russell, Georgia, right next to Russell, as we showed, where Sally Yates' family grew up in 1975 to be the investigator into all these murder cases. So he is the person that, if there's evidence that disappeared, as this young lady indicates, that her parents were murdered to cover something up, who was the crime scene investigator? Jimmy Terrell. Well, we know by the Marietta 7 case that there was a huge cover-up, a massive cover-up. And you got to watch episode 8, y'all. The linchpin, I go into that. It's undeniable. But so now Jimmy Terrell, the investigator in Winder over all these cases, working with all the federal authorities, with the ability to go into every crime scene and take out evidence. Sally Yates named Jimmy Terrell to me as a co-conspirator, as a criminal actor. And then today, he's still at the top of Winder government. Jimmy Terrell, the same name, the same family as the establishing family at the top of the secret society. Just like Sally Yates' family, who was caught in the mafia, were. Top of the secret society. Alfred Quillian, secret society in Winder, Georgia. Undeniable, he put it in his obituary. That's the problem. Being censored by any means necessary, starting with the easiest, hardest to prove, electronic censorship, and ending with nothing short of murder and hiring hitmen to kill large numbers of people to cover up the pattern of grand conspiracy. That is what Sally Yates has been doing. That's why I'm doing this broadcast. It's just unbelievable that at this point, nobody's heard it. It has not reached the level of the national investigations, or even my representative hasn't even acknowledged me.
Did you talk to us about why you brought this out? Because I still keep looking. I want to touch it.
Yeah, touch it. We did it.
So why did you bring this out again? Just to show that they're part of the secret society?
Right. That's the Masonic emblems.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's
I feel dirty touching it.
Well,
it's a little dirty. Something's wrong with that.
They use a lot of different symbolism, but that is the symbolism of a very well constructed house or building or anything else. Originally, the Masons were builders, and in order to build a structure that's the most secure and sound and able to build multiple levels, you need everything to be done with precision. So the square and the compass indicate something that's very precisely built, whether it be a drama in a court case or a cover-up or whatever it is. That's their picture of indicating this is who we are, what we do. We operate with precision.
I have to say one thing, Ferris. You know your stuff. You definitely know everything that you've researched. And it's exciting kind of to see what's next. So what is next week? What are we going to talk about?
Well, that's a good question. So I got into, a lot of what I was leaning into for next week. But at this point, what I'm trying to do, with this podcast is present evidence. So basically, at this point, I feel like I've presented enough evidence to show beyond a shadow of a doubt the history of organized crime, of federal racketeering, up to the point of hiring hitmen by Sally Quillian Yates' family and legal family, that historical corruption. In the last episode, I promised to bring forward a to talk about a ripoff, just a flagrant heist that was done by Sally Yates and her mother, because a lot of these people are older, and a lot, I realize that a lot of the audience is going to look at this and be like, wow, you're talking about some really old people. Well, they've lived a life of crime, but that's how they get to the top of the secret society. The people that were above them are dead now, and now they're in charge. They're the ones calling the shots. So I can go ahead and knock this out, because this is one of the things we're going to cover. This is a con job, a ripoff that was done by Sally Yates and her mom. So her father was Supreme Court of Georgia, where these mobsters were frequently, basically their cases were thrown out. Like we talked about Ruth Chancey, and she was repeatedly, calling hits out, murdering people, and she went on trial for that, and the Supreme Court of Georgia threw it out. But this is Quillian versus the Employees Retirement System. This is a case where Sally Quillian Yates' mother ripped off the taxpayers, and this is how sick it is. So I'm going to read it to you. It's 259 Georgia, 253 1989 being the year. Quillian versus Retirement System of Georgia, Supreme Court of Georgia. This is Sally Quillian Yates representing her mother, Zara Terrell Quillian. Zara Terrell Quillian was the widow. This is an appeal on behalf of the widow of former Judge John Kelly Quillian. Okay, let's run through the facts of the case real quick. John Kelly Quillian resigned his office on September 30th, 1984. On August 15th, 1984, the director of the Employees Retirement System wrote to Judge Quillian. Judge Quillian was advised that his base monthly pension allowance would be $4,788. That's pretty nice. A monthly pension of $4,788. Sounds kind of high to me for retirement. In November 1984, Judge Quillian began receiving the monthly pensions of $4,788. In May of 1985, the Employees Retirement System recalculated Judge Quillian's pension, declaring that it had erred in the first calculation and reducing it to $3,041. In other words, he was getting $1,746 a month more than he was supposed to get. That's a lot of money. Okay? For a Supreme Court, or he was an appeals court judge for the state of Georgia, he's getting paid $1,746 a month that he's not supposed to get. Sally Yates sues. Now, her father takes his own life, so he's no longer alive, but Judge Kelly Quillian takes his own life. Now, Sally Yates, representing her mother, goes to the Supreme Court of Georgia and sues to continue the overpayments. And here's her argument. My father calculated how much it was going to take. No, that's irrelevant. Your father calculated how much money it was going to take for anything is irrelevant. Your retirement is based on a calculation that has nothing to do with what he thinks he deserves or wants, okay? Now, if he says he planned his budget on it at retirement, okay, then he took his life. And the argument is that his wife deserves to continue to get the overpayment because the dead man planned on how much he budgeted to live off of. How is that possible? How much does a dead man eat? How much does a dead man's insurance cost? How much fuel does he put in his car?
What's the relevance of that to your case?
The relevance is that she's suing on a basis of a lie. She's saying, I'm representing my mom. My mom claims to need the full benefit that was overpaid. Okay. They continue to get the overpayment.
So you're just trying to show that she's a scumbag?
She's a con artist.
Okay, gotcha.
She's a criminal that controls the courts. The judge, there's no debate whatsoever. The judge should have said, if you overcalculated, or if your husband overcalculated so that you could live in this castle and thought you were going to continue to get paid more, then we're going to continue the payments for a year, and you're going to have to downsize your house.
So Nancy Pelosi doing this corruption to run the stock markets and become rich. Is that the same kind of thing?
We're talking about Sally Quillian Yates, the chief suspect in the nation's most important investigation, and I'm proving that she has a long history of controlling the courts and being able to get a corrupt ruling. I don't care about Nancy Pelosi right now. I'm focused on what's directly the relevant issue, and the issue is this case right here shows how conscienceless Sally Quillian Yates and her mother, who's passed, are. They have and the judge in their case was 100% corrupt in making a ruling because the argument was that he needed this money. He calculated his living standard based on what he needed, but he doesn't need it. He's dead. That's the whole point. There is no justification whatsoever for what she's doing. She's just stealing. That's their policy. That's their pedigree. So,
Wow.
Next week, more mobsters, more crime, and I hope to dig out some of the evidence, to get some more of the evidence on that I've collected, because this is a real challenge for me, building a studio, and like you're saying, you're saying what you've seen, 20% of it looks relevant, 80% of it looks like it could be coincidence. So what I'm going to be presenting is more and more of the evidence that I've collected in my case to show FISA abuse in my case. And when I get enough of that evidence, because I realize I'm coming out against people who, some of them may just be spies, right? Some of them, the problem is the spy agency is conspiring with the secret society. That's something I've learned in this, that the secret society is an extension of the spy agencies. So whenever, like the young lady that came and tried to get into my life, the lovely young spy, no doubt, may not have been on government payroll.
The honeypot.
She may have been. wait, you just wait. But she may have been a spy, but she may not have been on government payroll. She may have been an actor with the secret societies because they're working together. That's the biggest problem we have in our government. So as I dig these out, I've got to learn how, y'all. It's a long, expensive learning process for me, and I got to pay for it, so I got to have a full-time job. But I have every intention of putting together some of the evidence that I've collected and continuing to put that out there. So you will be seeing more of the evidence now that I've built the case historically, but more of the evidence, the current evidence in my case, to show FISA abuse and how horribly sick the attacks against our citizens have been to control our government. Hope to have you back, Tommy.
See you, folks.
Till next time, lock your doors. Sally Yates is still on the loose.
I'm scared.